Hey guys, if you're new here or don't know me, my name is Sean and I speak Spanish to a nearly native level. And today I'm going to be talking about some of the weirdest things that have happened to me learning Spanish so that you can avoid the same embarrassment that I had when I used some of these words. First of all, I want to go over why people make mistakes in Spanish. Sometimes when we hear a word in Spanish, it sounds a little bit like a word in English, and our brains naturally try to associate that word with another one. And I'm laughing in my mind right now talking to the camera, and you're going to understand why in a little bit because I have three crazy examples of things that I did and said in Spanish. And once we go over these, I'm also going to tell you how you can avoid making these same mistakes. So let's start with the first one. 15 years ago, I was in Houston, Texas, and I was getting ready to go to a Christmas party. And this Christmas party was with people who didn't speak English very well. You might be wondering, well, why were you there? When I grew up, it was a little bit crazy. I just kind of did a little bit of everything because I'm curious. I want to see the world. But I went to this Christmas party and I was, at first a little bit timid, a little bit shy, scared to talk to people, thinking, oh no, I'm going to make a mistake and I am going to embarrass myself tonight. But finally, I got up the courage to be able to talk to these people. And what I noticed is that the conversation was going pretty well. Had a glass of wine, started feeling a little bit better about myself and my abilities. And after the wine kind of kicked in, I really started to talk to these people a lot more. And we got into talking, and, they asked me, can you tell us about your day? These people are really accommodating. I find most Spanish speakers to be very accommodating when people are learning a language, especially if you're trying to communicate with them. They're very happy for you to try. But they asked me about my day, and I did very well telling them about my morning, my afternoon, my evening. But something that day happened to me that was very, very embarrassing. I had went to the university and I was trying to talk to somebody, and they told me which way to go to get to the admissions office. So I was walking and then I stopped and I had my conversation with them, and they're like, "Oh, you have to go this way, across campus that way." So I started walking and this person was still talking to me. And as we were walking, I wasn't paying attention to where I was going. Instead, I was just paying attention to the person that was telling me where to go. And you're not going to believe this. I walked directly into a tree. Slap. Oh, I felt so embarrassed. And it probably doesn't help that the person I was talking to was a little bit attractive, but right into the tree. And I was so embarrassed. And the thing is, I was trying to explain this to the people that I lived with. And they said, hey, what happened to you today? And I started speaking and I said, pues, la verdad, hoy estaba caminando con una persona que me estaba ayudando para encontrar a la oficina de admisiones, and I wasn't paying attention, so I went through and I built out this story in Spanish, and then I told them, pues, me puse muy embarazada. I started looking around. Everybody they started laughing really, really hard, and I'm like, well, why are y'all laughing at me? I'm trying my best to talk to you. And the person that spoke English there looked at me and they're like, embarazada does not mean embarrassed. Embarazada means pregnant. This was a very interesting and also a little bit embarrassing moment for me in Spanish. I want to go ahead and talk about why this happens. So, if we think about people who are learning Spanish as a second language, a lot of times there are words that are called cognates. And cognates are words that are the same in English and the same in Spanish. The spelling is similar, and the only thing different is usually the pronunciation. You probably already know some cognates in Spanish and English. So for example, hospital versus hospital. This is a cognate in English, but this is not a false cognate. This is a true cognate because they're spelt the same. The only difference here is they're said differently. And if you say hospital and then you hear somebody in Spanish say hospital, you're probably going to know that they're saying hospital. There are tons of cognates that you can find in English and Spanish, which makes it very easy to learn the language, but sometimes there are false cognates too. And that is kind of what led me to tell these people I'm pregnant rather than I'm embarrassed. After this, I found that the people were very nice nice and they really helped me. They told me that instead of saying embarazada, you can say tengo vergüenza, estoy avergonzado, all of these different words that I could say instead of pregnant, all of these different words that I can say for embarrassed. And I thought that was a very positive learning experience. This next story is also a little bit silly, but it's not nearly as silly because as somebody who's learning Spanish, you're probably going to understand where my brain was with this. But I used to live in Colombia. I was teaching English there for about a year and a half, and I absolutely loved it. It was fantastic. But I went to a store one day that was kind of similar to a Sears. You know, they sell appliances and they sell clothing. And I was in the store with this person walking around, and I really needed to use the toilet. So I was looking around for the bathroom, and this person was like, "Oh, go back there. You know, I'll come see you in a moment once I check out, and then we can go." I went to the restroom and I came back out. And by this time, the person had already purchased his item and he was waiting for me outside. So, what I did was I texted him and I said, "Hey, ¿dónde estás? Te estoy buscando y no te encuentro." And the person said, "Oh, estoy en el éxito." And for me, I was like, okay, he's outside. He's waiting for me outside. And so I walked outside and he wasn't there. I looked here, I looked there, and I was like, what in the world is going on here? And I texted him again and he said, no, 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 estoy en el éxito, mira a tu alrededor y me vas a encontrar. So I looked around because he's like, hey, look around, you'll see me. And so I started looking around and I could not find this man no matter what I did. I was like, éxito, éxito, éxito. I thought the éxito were all of the doors. But it turns out, in English, you think éxito, you think, oh, the exit. I'm going to go outside of the exit. I'm going to go through the exit door. That is not what this person meant at all. Instead, what he meant was the store éxito, which was right outside the store and across the street. And I'm sitting here thinking, dude, why did you leave me? Why did you go all the way over there knowing that I'm in the toilet? I'm thinking you're waiting for me. Why did you go all the way over there? And so I go over there, I go into the store and I find him. It was a very eye-opening experience for me because it really helped me to understand how people use language. Not everybody uses language the same way. And the only way to really remember all of these uses of language is to be immersed in it and to practice and to speak with people. Now, let's really get into what éxito means because it definitely doesn't mean an exit. And apart from Colombia, I don't think there are any stores in Spanish-speaking countries where they're called éxito. So éxito itself actually means success. Normally, we say this when we're successful. So, for example, somebody could say, hey, how did you do on your exam? You could say, ay, me lo pasé, tuve éxito con el examen, right? You can say, hey, I did a good job on my test. I was successful. I got an A, whatever that be. So this was just another one of those false cognates that really took me for a whirl in my mind. And I promise you guys, the only way to learn these is if you're actually practicing Spanish with native speakers or actively seeking out how to use these. And the cool thing is, I actually have a Spanish acquisition system that will teach you how to do it and a free email course. So if you want either of those so that you can avoid all these embarrassing moments like I'm telling you about right now, go ahead and check in the description. You'll see them there. You can sign up for the email list. And in 7 days, I promise you, if you follow the email list and you take all the actions I'm telling you, you will be able to at least start a conversation with somebody in Spanish. And it'll be very empowering for you as well, because I know every time I talk to someone in Spanish, it makes me feel very good. Like, I did it. I got it. Despite what my aunt told me, when I started learning Spanish, she said, Sean, you're never going to learn this. It's a second language and you speak English. And I'm like, you know what? You know what? Get away, get away, get away. You're still in Texas doing God knows what, and I've lived in 5 different countries. So, guys, go ahead and get that. And trust me, follow the rules, follow the pointers that I give you, and you will speak Spanish within a week with a native speaker, even if you're a little bit scared. But that's the first step of learning a language. So let's talk about another false cognate and an experience that I had with it. Okay, so this false cognate has more to do with my understanding rather than my output. And I was really like, my jaw dropped and nearly hit the floor when I heard somebody say this, because imagine this, I was working at a school with children because I'm a teacher, and I went to the school and these 2 little kids were fighting, and I walked in to the classroom and I was like, hey, kids, quit fighting. And, They weren't, so the aide came in to help me. And the aide was from Mexico. She spoke Spanish as a first language, which was cool with me because I was learning. At this time, I was living in the United States. And she walks up and she separates the kids. And she told the kids in Spanish, she's like, Ay, ustedes siempre están peleando. You guys are always fighting. Me molestan bastante. Me molestan bastante. Immediately, I'm like, wait, what are you telling these kids here? Why did you just say that, they molest you? Because the words sound the same. Molestar, molest. Molestar, molest. So, me as the teacher looking over here at this aide, I'm like, what in the world is this lady saying to these children? And it turns out that this was a misunderstanding on my behalf, a big misunderstanding on my behalf, because the word molestar in Spanish actually means to annoy someone. So when she said me molestan bastante, she was actually saying you're always getting on my nerves. Not something I would have said to the children just because they were, 7 years old. At the same time, it also wasn't something horrible like I thought. So here's the big thing about learning Spanish. False cognates can really cause you a lot of mistakes and a lot of embarrassment. I don't want you guys to make the same mistakes I did. So that's why my course has been designed to put you face to face with a Spanish speaker. That way, from day one in my course, you start speaking Spanish, you get all of the exposure you need, and you get all of the input you need. And you get members only access to a private group where you're going to be connected with thousands of speakers just like you who are learning English and who are learning Spanish. So, those are my top three most embarrassing things that have ever happened to me when I was learning a language. Do you have any? I would love to hear what are the most embarrassing moments for you in Spanish. So if you have any of those, go ahead, drop them in the comments and let me know. I would love to go over them, maybe see a video about them, tell you if I've experienced the same ones, just because I think it's massively interesting when I'm connected with other language learners. So guys, until then, I'll see you next time. If you like the video, hit the like and subscribe button because I'm going to be creating more videos telling you about my experiences learning Spanish and giving you expert tips so that you can become a Spanish speaker to a very advanced level.